If you're over 60, some financial decisions simply stop making sense, not because you're incapable, not because you're behind, but because the rules change. What worked at 40 can quietly destroy stability at 65. And most people don't notice the shift until the damage is done. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 8 things that make no financial sense after 60. Some of them are common advice. Some of them feel normal. One of them is something most retirees are still doing without realizing the long-term cost. Let's start with the one that causes the most silent damage: taking on new long-term debt. At 30 or 40, debt is leverage. At 60, it's a risk. The math changes. Your earning years are limited. Your flexibility is reduced. Your margin for recovery shrinks. A 30-year mortgage at 62 is not ambition, it's exposure. Even a 7-year car loan stretches into your 70s. That's not about affordability, it's about a timeline mismatch. Debt assumes future income. After 60, income becomes optional, unstable, or fixed. And here's the part most people miss. Debt doesn't just cost interest, it removes options. If you owe, you can't pivot easily. If markets dip, you can't pause payments. If health changes, you can't scale down fast. Freedom matters more than upgrades after 60. Now here's where this gets uncomfortable. Some people say, but I can afford the payments. That's not the right question. The right question is, does this increase or decrease flexibility? After 60, flexibility is wealth. Anything that reduces it better has a very strong reason. Most long-term debt doesn't.
Now, let's talk about something that sounds smart on paper: chasing high returns to catch up. This is one of the most dangerous traps after 60. You look at your portfolio, you think, if I could just get 12% instead of 6%, I'd feel safe. That thought is understandable, but here's the reality. The closer you are to needing your money, the less risk makes sense. Volatility hurts more when you don't have time. At 35, a market drop is temporary. At 67, a large drop combined with withdrawals can permanently damage your plan. This is called sequence risk. But forget the technical term. Here's what it really means. Bad timing can erase decades of discipline, and chasing higher returns increases the chance of bad timing. After 60, the goal isn't maximizing upside, it's minimizing downside. That shift alone explains why many financially secure retirees look conservative. They're not afraid, they're realistic. Now here's something even more common: upgrading your lifestyle just because you finally can. This one feels deserved. You worked hard, you sacrificed. Now you want a better house, the better car, the better everything. But here's the problem. Lifestyle upgrades after 60 are sticky. They create fixed costs: higher property taxes, higher insurance, higher maintenance. And once your lifestyle expands, shrinking it feels like failure. So you don't, even if the math says you should. The wealthiest retirees often resist dramatic upgrades, not because they can't afford them, but because they understand something simple. Comfort beats status, and sustainability beats image. Now here's the fourth thing that makes no sense after 60. Ignoring healthcare planning. This is the expense most people underestimate, not because they're careless, but because it's uncomfortable to think about. Healthcare costs rise with age. Long-term care is expensive. Prescription needs increase. Even small gaps in coverage can create major financial stress. Yet many retirees spend more time optimizing investments than understanding their medical coverage. That's backwards. One unexpected health event can undo years of careful saving. Planning for health isn't pessimistic, it's protective. And after 60, protection matters more than performance.
Now, let's talk about something subtle. Financially supporting adult children without limits. Helping your children feels natural. But here's the question most retirees don't ask. At what cost? Occasional support is one thing. Ongoing financial dependency is another. When retirees quietly subsidize adult lifestyles, they reduce their own margin. And margin is what protects you in your 70s and 80s. This doesn't mean saying no to everything. It means structuring help intentionally. Because once your earning power is gone, rebuilding is hard. Generosity without structure becomes vulnerability. And vulnerability after 60 compounds fast. Now here's something that surprises people. Carrying too much house. Not just mortgage, space. Large homes feel like success, but they require maintenance, time, energy, money. At 60, energy is more valuable than square footage. Downsizing isn't about giving up, it's about reducing friction. The fewer things that demand your attention and money, the longer your resources last. Quietly wealthy retirees often simplify housing earlier than others expect, not because they have to, but because it increases freedom. Now here's another trap. Believing your current expenses will stay the same forever. Many retirees assume their spending will decline steadily. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Travel years can spike spending. Healthcare years can spike it even more. Inflation compounds silently. What feels affordable today may feel tight in 10 years. Planning based on today's comfort without stress testing tomorrow is risky. After 60, conservative assumptions are safer than optimistic ones.
Here's something that makes absolutely no financial sense. Pretending nothing needs to change. Some people try to carry their 45-year-old financial strategy into retirement unchanged. Same risk tolerance, same spending patterns, same assumptions. But retirement is a different phase. The objective changes. It's no longer accumulation, it's sustainability. And sustainability requires adjustment. One of the biggest financial mistakes after 60 doesn't look like a mistake at all. It looks responsible. It sounds mature. It even feels safe. Holding on to every dollar out of fear. Now, being cautious is smart, but fear-based hoarding is different. Some retirees become so afraid of running out of money that they stop living. They delay experiences they can afford. They refuse small comforts that wouldn't change the math. They avoid reasonable spending because of worst-case scenarios that may never come. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Money that never gets used for anything meaningful isn't security. It's unused potential. After 60, your money has one job: to support your life, not to sit untouched out of fear. There's a balance. Too aggressive is dangerous. Too restrictive is wasteful. Quietly confident retirees understand this balance. They plan carefully, then they give themselves permission to live within that plan. Now let's talk about something that feels productive but often backfires. Constantly checking your portfolio, daily tracking, hourly news consumption, endless analysis. This habit increases anxiety without increasing returns. At 30, volatility is noise. At 65, volatility feels personal. And when you watch your accounts too closely, every dip feels like danger. That emotional stress leads to reaction. Reaction leads to bad timing. Bad timing leads to permanent loss. Here's a simple principle. If your plan requires constant monitoring to survive, it isn't a good plan. After 60, simplicity beats stimulation. Your financial system should run quietly, not demand daily emotional energy. Now, here's another behavior that makes less sense after 60. Co-signing loans. This one is dangerous. It's often done out of love, helping a child buy a car, helping someone qualify for a mortgage. But when you co-sign, you take on the risk without control. If payments stop, the responsibility falls on you. And at 60 plus, you don't have decades to recover from someone else's mistake. Your credit matters. Your liquidity matters. Your stress level matters. Risking your stability to improve someone else's is rarely wise, especially when your earning window is limited.
Now let's move into something more subtle. Overcomplicating investments. Multiple accounts, exotic strategies, high-fee products you barely understand. Complexity creates fragility. The more moving parts, the more chances something breaks. At 60, you don't need sophistication, you need clarity. If you can't explain your own investment strategy in a few simple sentences, it may not fit this phase of life. Because when stress hits, complex systems are harder to manage. Simple systems survive longer. Here's something else that quietly drains retirement stability: refusing to adjust ego. Some people built their identity around income, around success, around growth. When retirement comes, they try to maintain the same outward image, same spending, same scale, same visibility. But here's the problem. Income has changed. The time horizon has changed. Risk tolerance should change. Yet ego resists adjustment. Financially, this is dangerous because it prioritizes appearance over sustainability. After 60, peace should matter more than proving anything. Now here's something that feels harmless: making large financial decisions quickly, buying property without long reflection, moving assets impulsively, entering partnerships because it feels right. At 35, time can correct mistakes. At 65, recovery time shrinks. Every large decision deserves extra space, extra questions, extra patience. If something feels urgent, it probably benefits someone else more than you. Now let's talk about inflation. Many retirees underestimate it, not because they ignore it, but because it's invisible. 3% doesn't feel dramatic, but compounded over 20 years, it's massive. If you retire at 62, you could easily live into your 80s or 90s. That's decades of rising costs. Planning only for today's expenses is incomplete. The real question is, will this still feel affordable 15 years from now? If the answer's unclear, caution makes sense. Now, here's something almost no one likes to hear: delaying difficult financial conversations, avoiding estate planning, avoiding end-of-life preferences, avoiding beneficiary updates. It feels uncomfortable, so it gets postponed. But after 60, clarity protects both you and your family. Confusion creates conflict, and conflict often creates unnecessary financial loss. Having documents organized, plans updated, instructions clear. That's not pessimistic, it's responsible. It reduces stress later. Trying to time the market in retirement. Selling everything because you feel a crash coming. Buying aggressively because you don't want to miss out. This behavior is common at all ages, but after 60, the consequences are sharper. Timing requires being right twice: when to exit and when to re-enter. Even professionals fail consistently at this. What feels like control is often just anxiety in disguise. After 60, discipline beats prediction.
All 8 of these financial mistakes have one thing in common. They come from using the wrong rules for the wrong stage of life. After 60, the goal is no longer expansion. It's preservation with purpose. And that shift is harder than most people expect, because for decades, you were rewarded for growth. Earn more, invest more, take calculated risks, upgrade gradually. Now, the reward system changes. After 60, you're rewarded for stability, for simplicity, for protecting what already works. The retirees who struggle financially often aren't irresponsible. They're just slow to adjust. They keep playing the accumulation game in a preservation phase, and that mismatch creates friction. Let's step back and connect the dots. Taking on long-term debt after 60 reduces flexibility. Chasing higher returns increases volatility risk.
Upgrading lifestyle permanently increases fixed costs. Ignoring healthcare planning invites unpredictable expenses. Supporting others without limits reduces your own margin. Carrying too much house increases friction. Assuming expenses will stay flat ignores inflation. Avoiding difficult planning conversations creates chaos later. Timing the market introduces unnecessary instability. None of these behaviors are evil, they're just misaligned. And misalignment compounds over time. Here's the deeper mindset shift. After 60, money becomes a stability tool, not a growth engine. That sounds small, but it changes everything. When money is a growth engine, you focus on acceleration. When money is a stability tool, you focus on control. Control of expenses, control of risk, control of emotional reactions. Now, here's something that may surprise you. Many financially secure retirees don't feel wealthy. They feel steady, and steady is powerful. Steady means they can absorb shocks. Steady means they don't panic at headlines. Steady means they don't need dramatic returns to feel safe. That emotional steadiness protects their finances more than any strategy. Let's talk about fear for a moment. After 60, fear shows up in two opposite forms: fear of not having enough and fear of missing out. The first fear makes people hoard and never live. The second fear makes people take risks they shouldn't. Both are emotional reactions. Both can quietly damage retirement. The solution isn't eliminating fear, it's building a plan strong enough that fear doesn't control behavior. A written withdrawal strategy, a clear asset allocation, a healthcare plan, an estate plan. When clarity increases, emotional reactions decrease. And here's the part many people miss. Peace is a financial asset. If your plan lets you sleep at night, that has value. If your lifestyle doesn't require constant optimization, that has value. If your obligations are low and your flexibility is high, that has value. Those qualities don't show up on net worth statements, but they determine how long your money lasts.
Now let's address something uncomfortable. Some retirees spend years trying to maintain an identity that no longer fits. The big house, the luxury image, the high-energy lifestyle. But retirement is a new chapter, not a continuation of midlife performance. Letting go of outdated expectations isn't a loss, it's an adaptation. And adaptation is what keeps finances alive over decades. The retirees who adapt early tend to stay ahead. The ones who resist change often feel squeezed later. Here's another powerful shift. After 60, optional expenses should remain optional. That sounds obvious, but many people turn optional comforts into permanent obligations. Second homes, luxury car leases, large recurring subscriptions, high-maintenance properties. When optional becomes fixed, pressure increases, and pressure reduces freedom. Freedom should expand in retirement, not shrink. Now let's talk about longevity. There's a good chance you will live longer than previous generations. That's positive, but it changes the math. Retirement might last 25 or even 30 years. That's not a short season. That's a full chapter of life. Planning only for the first 10 years is incomplete. Your decisions at 62 affect 82. Small inefficiencies compound, but so does discipline. And here's the reassuring part. Avoiding these 8 financial mistakes doesn't require brilliance. It requires awareness. It requires patience. It requires resisting impulses that feel normal but don't fit this stage. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is durability. Durable plans survive downturns. Durable lifestyles survive inflation. Durable mindsets survive uncertainty.
If you remember one thing from this entire conversation, let it be this. After 60, your financial strategy should reduce stress, not increase it. If something makes your situation more complex, more fragile, or more dependent on perfect outcomes, it deserves serious scrutiny. Retirement isn't about squeezing every last drop of potential from your money. It's about building a life your money can quietly support. And when you remove the behaviors that no longer make sense, stability becomes much easier. Not because the world gets safer, but because your system gets stronger. That's the difference between retirees who constantly worry and retirees who move calmly through uncertainty. One group keeps trying to grow. The other group focuses on protecting what already works. Now you know the difference, and more importantly, you know what to avoid.